Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Shri Krishna. Very, very wonderful time of day is those few hours before sunrise. It's called Brahma Murta hours. Very, very good time to rise, get up from sleep, and chant Hare Krishna. Chant and hear. It's a really good time. So that's what we did this morning. It's what we've been doing the last few mornings, getting back into that practice. And it's paying off. So, up early, clean up, shower up, and go to the temple. I'm so fortunate that there is a Hare Krishna temple just maybe 5 minutes away. I'm really fortunate. And so I was there early. It's the only one in the temple at about 3:30, except for one devotee who's always there to get the temple room ready for when the devotees arrive, and the pujari behind the curtains getting ready for the arati. So chanting in the temple at that time is very, very auspicious. It's really a wonderful place to chant Hare Krishna is in a Hare Krishna temple. So a really great place to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Because the whole atmosphere is very devotional. Everything there is because someone was trying to serve Krishna. The little cushions, the ceiling fans, somebody installed them. The building itself was built probably some of the devotees, I don't know the history of it, but had enough construction skills to actually take part in the actual construction. And those skills that the devotees didn't have, they gave their hard-earned money to someone who come in and build. So it's all devotional. The whole atmosphere is built on people trying to serve Krishna. It's very nice. So chanting there is very auspicious. To chant Hare Krishna in an atmosphere like that, it's very, very good. It's a good background. So I was chanting my beads for probably about an hour as the devotees started to arrive to prepare for the congregational chanting and prayers before the deities in the temple. And the this morning was very, very nice singer, very melodious. It was very sweet singing. It was very nice singing. And it was a nice kirtan, really, really good kirtan. And also good singer for Tulsi, worshipping Tulsi Devi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So I get some realizations this morning, really powerful stuff. By the grace of my good friend and spiritual master, one of my spiritual masters, initiated by Prabhupada, okay? But I have, by the mercy of the Lord, and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and Jesus, I have a very good spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Gaura Haridas Avadut, who's has, by the mercy of the Lord, been empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bring the full meaning and conclusion of the study and the worship, and bring us to that point of being able to actually relish in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So the devotees are at the level of practicing, and there are different levels of realization. And I have to be honest, I was the only one in the assembly who was sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. It's a good thing there's a box of Kleenex behind Prabhupada's Vyasasana. I think they put that there so people could wipe their hands from the Charanamrita. But it's a good thing somebody put that there, because I usually hit it up pretty hard, that box of Kleenex. And so one of the things is really hitting home is that the sacrifice for the age is the chanting of Hare Krishna. That's the sacrifice for the age. And as the yuga cycles go through their cycling, every Kali Yuga, that is, in some of the yugas there's meditation. In some of the yugas there's very opulent deity worship. In some of the yugas there's performing austerities and sacrifices. Those are the recommended practices. The conclusion is always to develop love of God, but there are different ways to practice according to the different circumstances in the yugas. So in the Kali Yuga, it's not possible to do any of those because it's so degraded. So the practice for this age is the chanting of Hare Krishna. But, not every Kali Yuga is the chanting of Hare Krishna invested with the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of love in separation, in the mood of Sri Radharani in love of separation from Krishna. That isn't always available in the chanting of Hare Krishna when it's inaugurated established for the Kali Yuga. This Kali Yuga is very special like that because it's the Kali Yuga right after the appearance of Lord Krishna in the previous age. And that's the only time Lord Chaitanya ever manifests, is after Krishna appears. And Krishna doesn't appear very often at all. I mean, once in a day of Brahma, something like that. And Brahma's day is pretty long. It's like millions of Earth years. So that's what's going on. And Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So a lot of devotees are practicing the sacrifice for the age. It's very nice. It's the religion, the yoga, the dharma for the age. But over and above that, what's available is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which means ecstatic love, which means relishing relationship with Krishna in ecstasy. So I was kind of getting that, sitting there in the temple with the devotees who are practicing the sacrifice for the age. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I was really appreciating it. And then I was relating it to the appearance of Jesus. It was really funny. I couldn't stop laughing, actually. I was raised in a Jewish family, and when you go to the Jewish synagogue, the men especially, they do something called davening. And they do prayers. They wear, it's called a tallis. We call it a chadar, they call it a tallis. And they have a tefillin. It's a little box that goes around the head and hangs down here in front of you. So devotees have the Vaishnava marking. And there's a lot of similarities because you're dealing with Krishna, you're dealing with God, so there's going to be a lot of similarities. And the men, they daven. They go back and forth like that. I was sitting there and I was like, oh my goodness, it sounds like the devotees were chanting. It sounded just like the Jewish men in the temple davening, you know. And then, because we have the recent history of the appearance of Jesus Christ, and he was bringing out the love of God, not just the practice, because in Judaism you have the practice, the rules, the regulations, and the practice. And then there appeared a great devotee of the Lord who was able to bring out a higher essence, love of God, experience love of God. The benefit of which is first of all, no more birth and death, okay, old age and disease, but developing a beautiful spiritual body appropriate for serving the Lord in loving ecstasy. So it's more than just becoming freed from birth and death, old age and disease, and, not taking birth in the material world anymore. But without that loving ecstasy, the jiva, the soul, doesn't develop that beautiful, wonderful spiritual body suitable for serving the Lord in ecstasy, loving exchange. So Jesus appeared, and he was bringing out that, giving access to that, bringing in the dimension of love of God, for approaching the Lord in the appropriate form, spiritual form, to have a loving relationship with the Lord. And then this morning, when the devotees were davening, and I just couldn't stop laughing, because Lord Chaitanya is appearing to give access to that loving ecstasy, to develop an appropriate spiritual body for intimate loving exchange with the Lord, which is what the Lord wants. The Lord's a person, and that's his desire. He's a person. He wants loving relationships. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You have to have the appropriate spiritual form to be able to enter into a relationship with the Lord, because he's spiritual. He's nothing material about him. Hare Krishna, and he's completely pure, transcendental. So that's although practicing the chanting for the yagna for the age, the Sankirtan yagna, Hare Krishna, which is a sacrifice for the age, that's the religion for the age, it's very nice. But Lord Chaitanya is giving access to the loving ecstasy. Anyway, that's where I was this morning, and sometimes I was crying, sometimes I was laughing. And the way he does it is he works through a devotee. And I could see I was the only one in the assembly who was experiencing anything like this. And it was very obvious. I mean, I wasn't putting on a show. It was like, I couldn't help it, and then my voice would change. It would go deeper. And I'd try to chant Hare Krishna, and it would come out. It would sound very unusual. And I wasn't trying to do anything. It was just happening. Hare Krishna. And I realized that the Lord was working through me to try to give access to this ecstasy to the devotees. And this is what my spiritual master, Srila Gaur Haridas, has been talking about, like, since forever. And, yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Jai, Haribol. So I just came back from the Arti, and I was sharing, a few things like that. And then, there was something else too. There was the Rath Yatra. And during the Kirtan, during the Artik, Mangal Artik, I could feel how the atmosphere was. It was very nice. It wasn't ecstatic, but it was very nice, and everyone was serving nicely the holy name and appearing very reverently and respectfully before the deity. And but I was thinking, where's the ecstatic love for Krishna in all of this? Because I didn't see it, and I didn't feel it. I felt, the awe and the reverence and the respect and everything, which is good. I mean, it should be there, of course. But where was the loving exchange? Where was the joy? Where was the bliss? Where was Krishna? Radha and Krishna in all of this? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then I was thinking about the Rath Yatra, and how the Rath Yatra is a festival that's celebrated at different times by different devotional communities, usually once a year. It may be, for one community, they may perform the Rath Yatra in July. Another community may perform the Rath Yatra in August. Or there's no set time that these devotional communities will celebrate this festival. But I was thinking, it's not just a once-a-year thing. I was feeling how it's actually all the time. Because what's the Rath Yatra? The residents of Vrindavan, especially the gopis, who had the most intimate relationship with the Lord, are trying to bring him back to Vrindavan from the atmosphere of awe and reverence and the Vaikuntha atmosphere, trying to bring him back to that intimate atmosphere of Vrindavan. And I was thinking, my goodness, it's like a Rath Yatra. Every kirtan is like a Rath Yatra for a devotee who's hankering for that mood and that intimate relationship with the Lord. When they're chanting, it's like they're trying to bring the Lord, trying to attract the Lord back to Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, Hare. It's like Rath Yatra all the time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But it's enacted usually once a year, but actually it's like all the time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Srila Gaur Haridasa suggested I read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so I will. And I like to read from some of the other books. I'll do them later too. But right now I'll read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And how appropriate. It's the cleaning of the Gundicha temple. The Lord is preparing for the Rath Yatra by cleaning the temple. So, it's Madhya Lila, Volume 5, Chapter 12, and this is Text 1. If I can make it here. Okay, there's a little introduction, a little summary. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Gaur Haridas. Hare Krishna. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes this chapter as follows. The king of Orissa, Maharaj Prataparudra, tried his best to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Nityananda Prabhu and the other devotees informed the Lord about the king's desire, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not agree to see him. At that time, Sri Nityananda Prabhu devised a plan, and he sent a piece of the Lord's outward garment to the king. The next day, when Ramananda Roy again entreated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the king, the Lord, denying the request, asked Ramananda Roy to bring the king's son before him. The prince visited the Lord dressed like a Vaishnava, and this awakened remembrance of Krishna. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the son of Maharaj Prataparudra. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the Gundicha temple before the Rath Yatra took place. He then took his bath at Indradumna Lake and partook of prasad in the garden nearby. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the temple of Gundicha, a Gaudiya Vaishnava washed the lotus feet of the Lord and drank the water. This incident is very significant, for it awoke within the devotee ecstatic love. Then again, the son of Advaita Prabhu named Gopal fainted during kirtan, and when he did not come to his senses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu favored him by awakening him. There was also some humorous talk between Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu during prasad. Advaita Prabhu said that Nityananda Prabhu was unknown to anyone, and it was not the duty of a householder brahmana to accept dinner with a person unknown in society. In answer to this humorous statement, Sri Nityananda Prabhu replied that Advaita Acharya was a monist, and that one could not know how his mind could be turned by eating with such an impersonalist. The conversation of these two Prabhus, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu, carried a deep meaning that only an intelligent man can understand. After all, the Vaishnavas finished their luncheon. Sarup Damodar and others took their prasad within the rooms. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took great pleasure when he saw the Jagannath deity after the period of the deity's retirement. At that time, Lord Chaitanya was accompanied by all the devotees, and all of them were very much pleased. Text 1. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the Gundicha temple with his devotees and associates. In this way, he made the temple as cool and bright as his own heart, and thus he made the place befitting for Lord Krishna to sit. All glories to Gaurachandra. All glories to Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Srivas Thakur. I beg their power so that I can properly describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from his South Indian tour, Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, became very anxious to meet him. The king sent a letter from his capital, Katika, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, entreating him to obtain the Lord's permission so that he could go and see him. Replying to the king's letter, the Bhattacharya wrote that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not given his permission. After this, the king wrote him another letter. In this letter, the king requested Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, please appeal to all the devotees associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and admit this petition to them on my behalf. If all the devotees associated with the Lord are favorably disposed toward me, they can submit my petition at the lotus feet of the Lord. By the mercy of all the devotees, one can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Without his mercy, my kingdom does not appeal to me. If Gaurhari, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will not show mercy to me, I shall give up my kingdom, become a mendicant, and beg from door to door. When the Bhattacharya received this letter, he became very anxious. He then took the letter and went to the devotees of the Lord. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met with all the devotees and described the king's wishes. Then he presented the letter to all of them for inspection. Upon reading the letter, everyone was astonished to see that King Prataparudra had so much devotion for the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If the devotees gave their opinion and said, the Lord will never meet the king, and if we request him to do so, the Lord will surely feel very unhappy. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then said, we shall go once again to the Lord, but we shall not request him to meet the king. Rather, we shall simply describe the good behavior of the king. Having thus reached a decision, they all went to the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There, although ready to speak, they could not even utter a word. After they arrived there, at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's place, the Lord, seeing them, said, what have you all come here to say? I see that you want to say something, but you do not speak. What is the reason? Nityananda Prabhu then said, we want to tell you something. Although we cannot stay without speaking, we are still very much afraid to speak. We want to submit before you something that may or may not be befitting. The matter is this: unless he sees you, the king of Orissa will become a mendicant. Nityananda Prabhu continued, the king has decided to become a mendicant and accept the sign of a mendicant by wearing an ivory earring. He does not want to enjoy his kingdom without seeing the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nityananda Prabhu continued, the king also expressed his desire to see the moonlight face of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his full satisfaction. He would like to raise the lotus feet of the Lord to his heart. Hearing these statements, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind was certainly softened, but externally he wished to speak some harsh words. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I can understand that you all desire to take me to Katika to see the king. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, what to speak of spiritual advancement? All the people will blaspheme me. And what to speak of all the people? Damodar would chastise me. I shall not meet the king at the request of all the devotees, but I shall do so if Damodar will give his permission. Damodar replied, my lord, you are the fully independent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since everything is known to you, you know what is permissible and what is not permissible. I am merely an insignificant jiva, so what power do I have to give direction to you? By your own personal choice, you will meet with the king. I shall see it. The king is very much attached to you, and you are feeling affection and love toward him. Thus I can understand that by virtue of the king's affection for you, you will touch him. Although you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are completely independent, still you are dependent on the love and affection of your devotees. That is your nature. Nityananda Prabhu then said, who is there in the three worlds who can ask you to see the king? Still, it isn't the nature of an attached man to give up his life. Still, isn't it the nature of an attached man to give up his life if he does not attain his desired object? Hare Krishna. For instance, some of the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices gave up their lives in the presence of their husbands for the sake of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Nityananda Prabhu then submitted one suggestion for the Lord's consideration. There is a way, he suggested, by which you need not meet the king, but would enable the king to continue living. If you, out of your mercy, send one of your outward garments to the king would live, hoping to see you sometime in the future. The Lord said, since you are all very learned personalities, whatever you decide, I shall accept. Lord Nityananda Prabhu then obtained an external garment used by the Lord by requesting it from Govinda. Thus, Nityananda Prabhu delivered the old cloth to the care of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sent it to the king. When the king received the old cloth, he began to worship it exactly as he would worship the Lord personally. After returning from his service in South India, Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to remain with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to stay with the Lord, the king immediately gave him permission with great satisfaction. As for the king himself, he began to solicit Ramananda Roy to make a meeting arrangement. The king told Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful to you. Therefore, please solicit my meeting with him without fail. The king and Ramananda Roy returned together to Jagannath Kshetra, and Sri Ramananda Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At that time, Ramananda Roy informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the ecstatic love of the king. Indeed, as soon as there was some opportunity, he repeatedly informed the Lord about the king. Sri Ramananda Roy was indeed a diplomatic minister for the king. His general behavior was very expert, and simply by describing the king's love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gradually softened the Lord's mind. Maharaj Prachaparudra, in great anxiety, could not endure not seeing the Lord. Therefore, Sri Ramananda Roy, by his diplomacy, arranged a meeting with the Lord for the king. Sri Ramananda Roy frankly requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "Please show your lotus feet to the king at once." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "My dear Ramananda, you should make this request only after considering whether it is befitting for a sannyasi to meet a king. If a mendicant meets a king, this world and the next world are both destroyed for the mendicant. Indeed, what is there to say of the next world? In this world, people will joke if a sannyasi meets a king." Ramananda Roy replied, "My lord, you are the supreme independent personality. You have nothing to fear from anyone because you are not dependent on anyone." When Ramananda Roy addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu objected, saying, "I am not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary human being. Therefore, I must fear public opinion in 3 ways, with my body, mind, and words." As soon as the general public finds a little fault in the behavior of a sannyasi, they advertise it like wildfire. A black spot of ink cannot be hidden on a white cloth. It is always very prominent. Ramananda Roy replied, "My dear Lord, you have delivered so many sinful people. This King Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, is actually a servitor of the Lord and your devotee." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, "There may be much milk in a big pot, but if it is contaminated by a drop of liquor, it is untouchable. The king certainly possesses all good qualities, but simply by taking up the name king, he has infected everything. But if you are still very eager for the king to meet with me, please first bring his son to meet me." It is indicated in the revealed scriptures that the son represents the father. Therefore, the son's meeting with me would be just as good as the king's meeting with me. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and following the Lord's orders, brought the king's son to see him. The prince, just entering upon his youth, was very beautiful. He was blackish in complexion and had large lotus eyes. The prince was dressed in yellow cloth, and there were jeweled ornaments decorating his body. Therefore, anyone who saw him would remember Lord Krishna. Seeing the boy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately remembered Krishna. Meeting the boy in ecstatic love, the Lord began to speak. "Here is a great devotee," Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. "Upon seeing him, everyone can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "I have become very much obliged just by seeing this boy." After saying this, the Lord again embraced the prince. As soon as the prince was touched by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, symptoms of ecstatic love immediately manifested themselves in his body. These symptoms included perspiration, trembling, tears, being stunned, and jubilation. The boy began to cry and dance, and he chanted, Krishna, Krishna. Upon seeing these bodily symptoms and his chanting and dancing, all the devotees praised him for his great spiritual fortune. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calmed the youth and ordered him to come there daily to meeting. Ramananda Roy and the boy then departed from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Ramananda took him back to the king's palace. The king was very happy when he heard of his son's activities. Just by embracing his son, the king was filled with ecstatic love, just as if he had touched Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly. From then on, the fortunate prince was one of the most intimate devotees of the Lord. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu acts in the society of his pure devotees, performing his pastimes and spreading the Sankirtan movement. Some of the prominent devotees, like Advaita Acharya, used to invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take his meals at their homes. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I'm so blissed out, I'm like, just floating, Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, what next, Krishna? What surprises? Hare Rama, Rama Rama. That's what happens when you hang around a pure devotee like Srila Gaura Hari Das. You get blissed out, it's like, Krishna. Some of the prominent devotees, like Advaita Acharya, used to invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take his meals at their homes. The Lord accepted such invitations accompanied by his devotees. In this way, the Lord passed some days in great jubilation. Then the car festival of Lord Jagannath approached. Yay, the car festival of Lord Jagannath. Yay! Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first of all called for Kashi Mishra, then for the superintendent of the temple, then for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When these three people came before him, he begged them for permission to wash the temple, known as Gundicha. Upon hearing the Lord's request for them to wash the Gundicha temple, the Padicha, the superintendent of the temple, said, "My dear sir, we are all your servants. Whatever you desire is our duty to perform." The king gave a special order for me to do without delay whatever your lordship orders. My dear Lord, washing the temple is not service befitting you. Nonetheless, if you wish to do it, it is to be accepted as one of your pastimes. To wash the temple, you need many water pots and brooms. Therefore order me. I can immediately bring all these things to you. As soon as the superintendent understood the desire of the Lord, he immediately delivered 100 new water pots and 100 brooms for sweeping the temple. The next day, early in the morning, the Lord took his personal associates with him and, with his own hand, smeared sandalwood pulp on their bodies. He then gave each devotee a broom with his own hand, and taking all of them personally with him, the Lord went to Gundicha. In this way, the Lord and his associates went to cleanse the Gundicha temple. At first they cleansed the temple with brooms. The Lord cleansed everything inside the temple very nicely, including the ceiling. He then took up the sitting place, Shingashan, cleansed it, and again put it in its original place. Thus, the Lord and his companions cleansed and swept all the temple's buildings, big and small, and finally cleansed the area between the temple and the kirtan hall. Indeed, hundreds of devotees were engaged in cleansing all around the temple, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally carrying out the operation just to instruct others. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Blissed out, Hare Krishna, intoxicated, sitting here like, I'm intoxicated. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Govinda. Hare Krishna. Yeah. If we're fortunate enough to be experiencing and tasting ecstatic relationship with Krishna, the holy name, the order has been given not to hide it, but to show it so people can see, devotees can see, especially devotees. The order has been given. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, to show the symptoms. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Govinda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the temple in great jubilation, chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna all the time. Similarly, all the devotees were also chanting and at the same time performing their respective duties. The entire beautiful body of the Lord was covered with dust and dirt. In this way, it became transcendently beautiful. At times, when cleansing the temple, the Lord shed tears. And in some places, he even cleansed with those tears. After this, the place where the deity's food was kept, Bhoga Mandir, was cleansed. Then the yard was cleansed, and then all the residential quarters, one after the other. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu collected all the straw, dust, and grains of sand in one place, he gathered it all in his cloth and threw it outside. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees in great jubilation began to gather straws and dust with their own cloths and throw them outside the temple. The Lord then told the devotees, I can tell how much you have labored and how well you have cleansed the temple, simply by seeing all the straw and dust that you have collected outside. Even though all the devotees collected dirt in one pile, the dirt collected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was much greater. After the inside of the temple was cleansed, the Lord again allotted areas for the devotees to cleanse. The Lord then ordered everyone to cleanse the inside of the temple very perfectly by taking finer dust, straws, and grains of sand and throwing them outside. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas cleansed the temple for the second time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see the cleansing work. While the temple was being swept, about 100 men stood ready with filled water pots, and they simply awaited the Lord's order to throw the water from them. Hare Krishna. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called for water, all the men immediately brought the 100 water pots, which were completely filled, and delivered them before the Lord. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first washed the main temple and then thoroughly washed the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the sitting place, Shinashan, and everything else within the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself and his devotees began to throw water onto the ceiling. When the water fell, it washed the walls and floor. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to wash the sitting place of Lord Jagannath with his own hands, and all the devotees began to bring water. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. All the devotees within the temple began to wash. Each one had a broom in his hand, and in this way they cleansed the temple of the Lord. Some brought water to pour into the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and someone poured water on his lotus feet. The water that fell from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drunk by someone who hid himself. Someone else begged for that water, and another person was giving that water in charity. After the room was washed, the water was let out through an outlet, and it then flowed and filled the yard outside. The Lord mopped the rooms with his own cloths, and he polished the throne with them also. In this way, all the rooms were cleansed with 100 water pots. After the rooms had been cleansed, the minds of the devotees were as clean as the rooms. When the temple was cleansed, it was very purified and cool and pleasing, just as if the Lord's own pure mind had appeared. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Okay, next page. Since hundreds of men were engaged in bringing water from the lake, there was no place to stand on the banks. Consequently, someone began to draw water from a well. Hundreds of devotees brought water in the pots, and hundreds took the empty pots away to fill them again. With the exception of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Swarup Damodar, Brahmananda Bharati, and Paramananda Puri, everyone was engaged in filling the water pots and bringing them there. Many of the water pots were broken when people collided with one another, and hundreds of men had to bring new water pots to fill. Some people were filling the pots and others were washing the rooms, but everyone was engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and Hari. One person begged for a water pot by chanting the holy names, Krishna, Krishna, and another delivered a pot while chanting, Krishna, Krishna. Whenever anyone had to speak, he did so by uttering the holy name of Krishna. Consequently, the holy name of Krishna became an indication for everyone who wanted something. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was vibrating the holy name of Krishna in ecstatic love, he himself was performing the work of hundreds of men. It appeared as though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were cleansing and washing with 100 hands. He approached every devotee just to teach him how to work. When he saw someone doing nicely, the Lord praised him. But if he saw that someone was not working to his satisfaction, he immediately chastised that person, not bearing him any grudge. The Lord would say, "You have done well. Please teach this to others so that they may act in the same way." As soon as they heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say this, everyone became ashamed. Thus the devotees began to work with great attention. They washed the Jagamohan area, and then the place where food was kept, all other places were also washed. In this way, the meeting place was washed, the entire yard, the raised sitting places, the kitchen, and every other room. Thus, all places around the temple were thoroughly washed, within and without. After everything was thoroughly washed, a Vaishnava from Bengal, who was very intelligent and simple, came and poured water on the lotus feet of the Lord. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas then took that water and drank it. The Gaudiya Vaishnava then took that water and drank it himself. Seeing that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt a little unhappy, and he was outwardly angry. Although the Lord was certainly satisfied with him, he became angry externally in order to establish the etiquette of religious principles. The Lord then called for Sarup Damodar and told him, "Just see the behavior of your Bengali Vaishnava. This person from Bengal has washed my feet within the temple of the personality of Godhead. Not only that, but he drank the water himself. I now do not know what my destination is because of this offense. Indeed, your Bengali Vaishnava has greatly implicated me." At this point, Swarup Damodar Goswami caught the Gaudiya Vaishnava by the neck and, giving him a little jerk, ejected him from the Gundichapuri temple and made him stay outside. After Swarup Damodar Goswami returned within the temple, he requested Srimad Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excuse that innocent person. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much satisfied. He then asked all of the devotees to sit down in 2 lines on both sides. The Lord then personally sat down in the middle and picked up all kinds of straws, grains, and sand and dirty things. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was picking up the straws and grains of sand, he said, "I shall gather everyone's collection, and I shall ask whoever has collected less than all the others to pay a fine of sweet cakes and sweet rice." In this way, all the quarters of the Gundicha temple were completely cleansed and cleared. All the quarters were cool and spotless, like one's cleansed and pacified mind. When the water from the different rooms was finally let out through the halls, it appeared as if new rivers were rushing out to meet the waters of the ocean. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the Nishinga temple, inside and outside. Finally, he rested a few minutes and then began dancing. All around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees performed congregational chanting. The Lord, just like a maddened lion, danced in the middle. As usual, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, there were perspiration, trembling, fading, tears, jubilation, and roaring. Indeed, the tears from his eyes washed his body and those before him. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the bodies of all the devotees with the tears from his eyes. The tears poured like rains in the month of Shravana. The sky was filled with the great and loud chanting of Sankirtan, and the earth shook from the jumping and dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always liked the loud chanting of Swarup Damodar. Therefore, when Swarup Damodar sang, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high in jubilation. The Lord thus chanted and danced for some time. Finally, understanding the circumstances, he stopped. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Sri Gopal, the son of Advaita Acharya, to dance. While dancing in ecstatic love, Sri Gopal fainted and fell to the ground unconscious. When Sri Gopal fainted, Advaita Acharya hastily took him upon his lap. Seeing that he was not breathing, he became very much agitated. Advaita Acharya and others began to chant the holy name of Lord Nrsimha and sprinkle water. The roaring of the chant was so great that it seemed to shake the entire universe. When the boy did not regain consciousness after some time, Advaita Acharya and the other devotees began to cry. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed his hand on the chest of Sri Gopal and said loudly, "Gopal, stand up." As soon as Gopal heard the voice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately came to his senses. All the devotees then began to dance, chanting the holy name of Hari. This incident has been described in detail by Vrindavan Das Thakur, therefore I have described it only briefly. After taking rest, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees departed to take their baths. After bathing, the Lord stood on the bank of the lake and put on dry garments. After offering obeisances to Lord Nrsimhadev, whose temple was nearby, the Lord entered a garden. In the garden, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down with the other devotees. Vaninath Roy then came and brought all kinds of Mahaprasad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kasi Mishra and Tulasi, the superintendent of the temple, brought as much prasad as 500 men could eat. Seeing the large quantity of prasad, which consisted of rice, cakes, sweet rice, and a variety of vegetables, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much satisfied. Among the devotees present with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were Paramananda Puri, Ramananda Bharati, Advaita Acharya, and Nityananda Prabhu. Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Srivas Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit, Shankar, Nandan Acharya, Raghava Pandit, and Vikeshwara were also present. Receiving the permission of the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat down. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his devotees sat on raised wooden seats. In this way, all the devotees sat down to take their lunch in consecutive lines, one beside the other. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was repeatedly calling, "Haridas, Haridas," and at that time, Haridas, standing at a distance, spoke as follows. Haridas, Thakur said, "Let Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take his lunch with the devotees. Since I am abominable, I cannot sit down among you. Govinda will give me prasad later, outside the door. Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not call him again. Swarup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda, Damodar Pandit, Kashishwar, Gopinath, Vaninath, and Shankar distributed prasad, and the devotees chanted the holy names at intervals. Lord Sri Krishna had previously taken his lunch in the forest, and that very pastime was remembered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just by remembering the pastime of Lord Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was agitated by ecstatic love. But considering the time and circumstance, he remained somewhat patient. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You can give me the ordinary vegetable known as lapra vyanjana, and you may deliver to all the devotees better preparations like cakes, sweet rice, and amrita gutika." Since Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is omniscient, he knew what type of preparation each person liked. He therefore had Swarup Damodar deliver these preparations to their full satisfaction. Jagadananda went to distribute prasad, and suddenly he placed all the first-class preparations on the plate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When such nice prasad was put on the plate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was outwardly very angry. Nonetheless, when the preparations were placed on his plate, sometimes by tricks and sometimes by force, the Lord was satisfied. When the food was thus delivered, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked at it for some time. Being afraid of Jagadananda, he finally ate something. The Lord knew that if he did not eat the food offered by Jagadananda, Jagadananda would certainly fast. Being afraid of this, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate some of the prasad he offered. Swarup Damodar Goswami then brought some excellent sweetmeats, and standing before the Lord, offered them to him. Swarup Damodar Goswami then said, "Just take a little of this Mahaprasad and see how it is that Lord Jagannath has accepted it." Upon saying this, Swarup Damodar placed some food before the Lord, and the Lord ate out of affection. ate it. Swarup Damodar and Jagadananda again and again offered the Lord some food. Thus they behaved affectionately with the Lord. This was very, very uncommon. The Lord made Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sit on his left side, and when Sarvabhauma saw the behavior of Swarup Damodar and Jagadananda, he smiled. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to offer Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya first-class food. Therefore, out of affection, he had the servers put first-class food on his plate again and again. Gopinath Acharya also brought first-class food and offered it to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya while speaking sweet words. After seeing the Bhattacharya with first-class prasad, Gopinath Acharya said, "Just see what the Bhattacharya's previous mundane behavior was. Just consider how at present he is enjoying transcendental bliss." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "I was simply a less intelligent logician, but by your grace I have received this opulence of perfection." But for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, who is so merciful. He has converted a crow into a Garuda. Who could be so merciful? In the association of the jackals known as logicians, I simply continued to bark a resounding "You, you." Now, from the same mouth, I am chanting the holy names of Krishna and Hari. Whereas I once associated with the disciples of logic, all non-devotees, I am now merged in the waves of the nectarian ocean of the association of devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "From your previous birth you have been in Krishna consciousness. Thus you love Krishna so much that simply by your association we are all developing Krishna consciousness. Thus there is no one within these three worlds, save for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is always so willing to increase the glories of the devotees and give them satisfaction." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then took all the remnants of food offered to Jagannath, such as cakes and sweet rice, and distributed them to all the other devotees, calling them individually. Sri Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu sat side by side, and when prasad was being distributed, they engaged in a type of mock fighting. First Advaita Acharya said, "I am sitting in line with an unknown mendicant, and because I am eating with him, I do not know what kind of destination is awaiting me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the renounced order of life, consequently he does not recognize discrepancies. As a matter of fact, a sannyasi is not affected by eating food from anywhere and everywhere. According to the Shastras, there is no discrepancy in a sannyasi's eating at another's house. But for a householder brahmana, this kind of eating is faulty. It is not proper for householders to dine with those whose previous birth, family, character, and behavior are unknown." Nityananda Prabhu immediately refuted Sri Advaita Acharya, saying, "You are a teacher of impersonal monism, and the monistic conclusion is a great hindrance to progress, pure devotional service. One who participates in your impersonal monistic philosophy does not accept anything but for the one Brahman." Nityananda Prabhu continued, "You are such a monist, and now I am eating beside you. I do not know how my mind will be affected in this way." Thus they both went on talking and praising one another, although their praise appeared negative, for it appeared as if they exchanged ill names. Thereafter, calling all the Vaishnavas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed Mahaprasad as if sprinkling nectar. At that time, the mock fighting between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu became more and more delicious. After taking their lunch, all the Vaishnavas stood up and chanted the holy name of Hari, and the resounding noise filled all the upper and lower planetary systems. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered flower garlands and sandalwood pulp to all his devoted personal associates. The 7 persons, headed by Swarup Damodar, who were engaged in distributing prasadam to others, then took their meals within the room. Govinda saved some remnants of food left by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and kept them carefully. Later, one portion of these remnants was delivered to Haridas Thakur. The remnants of food left by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were later distributed among devotees who begged for them, and finally Govinda personally took the last remnants. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The fully independent, supreme personality of Godhead performs various types of pastimes. Pastimes of washing and cleansing the Gundicha temple is but one of them. The next day marks the performance of the festival of Netrotsava. This great festival was the life and soul of the devotees. Everyone was unhappy for a fortnight because they could not see the deity of Lord Jagannath. Upon seeing the Lord at the festival, the devotees were very happy. On this occasion, greatly happy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took all the devotees with him and visited the Lord in the temple. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to visit the temple, Kashishvar walked in front, checking the crowds of people, and Govinda walked in the rear, bringing the sannyasi's pitcher filled with water. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went toward the temple, Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Puri walked in front of him, and at his two sides walked Swarup Damodar and Advaita Acharya. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama. Just floating, it's so blissful, Krishna, Krishna. It was such a morning. Oh my goodness. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Govinda. With great anxiety, all the other devotees followed them into the temple of Lord Jagannath. Out of great eagerness to see the Lord, they all neglected the regulative principles. And just to see the Lord's face, went to the place where the food was offered. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very thirsty to see the Lord, and his eyes became like two bumblebees drinking the honey from the lotus eyes of Lord Jagannath, who is Krishna himself. The eyes of Lord Jagannath conquered the beauty of blossoming lotus flowers, and his neck was as lustrous as a mirror made of sapphires. The chin of the Lord, tinged with buff color, conquered the beauty of the banduli flower. This increased the beauty of his mild smiling, which was like lustrous waves of nectar. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavati Me. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavati Me. O Lord of the universe, kindly be visible to me. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavati Me. The luster of his beautiful face increased at every moment, and the eyes of hundreds and thousands of devotees drank its honey like bumblebees. As their eyes began to drink the nectar honey of his lotus face, their thirst increased. Thus their eyes did not leave him. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates enjoyed transcendental bliss upon seeing the face of Jagannath. This continued to midday. As usual, there were transcendental blissful symptoms in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. He perspired and trembled, and a constant flow of tears fell from his eyes. But the Lord checked these tears so they would not disturb his seeing the face of the Lord. Their looking at the face of Lord Jagannath was interrupted only when he was offered food. Otherwise, they would again look upon his face. When the food was being offered to the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his kirtan. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh, feeling such great pleasure upon seeing the face of Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgot everything. The devotees, however, took him to his lunch at noontime. Knowing that the car festival would take place in the morning, all the servants of Lord Jagannath were doubling their offerings of food. I have briefly described the pastimes of the Lord in washing and cleansing the Gundicha temple. By seeing or hearing these pastimes, even sinful men can awaken their Krishna consciousness. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Wow. Govinda, too relaxed, too blissed out, too intoxicated. So nice. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Wow. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Ecstatic worship, that's where we have to go. That's where the movement has to go. Devotees have to go there. Hare Krishna, that's the goal of it. To develop that ecstatic love for the Lord. Ah, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Why? Because it's Lord Chaitanya's desire. It's Krishna's desire. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. He's empowering different devotees. Hare Krishna. There's no one, unless they're empowered by Lord Chaitanya, there's no one that can enter that ecstatic worship. You have to be empowered by the Lord. Hare Krishna, and the Lord's empowered devotees. It continues on like that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. We're very fortunate to have a devotee like Srila Gaura Haridas. Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, who is empowered to deliver this ecstatic worship of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And it's not that anyone has to stop doing whatever service they're doing. Don't stop that, but add the ecstatic. You add the ecstasy. That's all. You don't stop what you're doing. You continue to be who you are and what you're doing. When you add the ecstatic, loving ecstasy, just add that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. It's like you don't stop chanting Hare Krishna. It's like, oh, ecstatic worship of the Lord means you stop chanting Hare Krishna. No. It means you chant Hare Krishna with new relish and new taste and new ecstasy. You don't stop chanting Hare Krishna because you're in ecstasy. It's not. So you don't stop doing whatever service you're doing. You continue to serve. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. If your service is to preach the ecstatic love, then, that's what you do because that's your service. You have some other service, that's all right. Don't take it away. Family, whatever. You don't have to stop anything. Just add the ecstasy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Of course, if the desire becomes strong enough, then you might want to let go of a few things, they might start getting let go of, and then concentrating more on simply entering into a deep mood of chanting holy names in ecstasy, because you don't need anything else. You're fully satisfied. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. You might get freed up like that. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare. But if not, just hear from the ecstatic devotees. Hare Krishna, and don't be inimical when you see someone experiencing ecstasy and chanting, not to be inimical to it. Don't find fault with it. Just accept it and be happy, that yes, it's real. It's available to us. Become enlivened. Yes, I want that too. I want that. It looks good. Wow, they're really experiencing something when they're chanting. They're not just going, they're actually experiencing something. Hare Krishna, Krishna is actually revealing himself in different ways. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Enlivening them from within. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Well, I guess that's it for now. So I was up at 3:30 and I'm chanting and dancing and reading, and then probably take a little break here, take a little prasad. Oh, Krishna. Haribol, everybody. Govinda.